Well, Happy New Year. I hope you enjoyed Christmas break, whatever that looked like for you. I want to share with you a passage in Scripture. This is what happens right after the Christmas story. So we have the birth of Jesus. We have Mary and Joseph presenting him in the temple, and you have the story of the prophet Simeon and the prophetess Anna. And then starting in verse 41 of chapter 2, you have a little glimpse of Jesus as a preteen. And really this is about all you're going to get when you study the Gospels. You get the birth of Christ, and then you get his 3 years of ministry, approximately the ages of 30 to 33. We don't really see much else except for this passage, which I think is great. Starting in verse 41, it talks about Mary and Joseph. They were traveling with a bunch of people, and they lost Jesus. They just assumed he was with the crowd, and they went around and can't seem to find him. And so the story's a lot more severe than what people realize. Not finding your kid, realizing your son is not with you would freak us all out. And so then they turn and they go back into town to try to find him. And it says in verse 46, this is a pretty important 3 words. It says, after 3 days, they found him in the temple. Jesus was missing for 3 full days. They couldn't find him. And here's what happens when they find him. After 3 days, they found him in the temple courts, sitting among the teachers, listening to them and asking them questions. Now, most people think when we hear about Jesus as a 12-year-old in the temple that he's like up on a pedestal and all these gentlemen are around him and he's teaching them and he's the one with all the answers and everyone's like hanging on his every word. And it doesn't tell us that. What it says is that after 3 days they found him in the temple courts, sitting among the teachers, so he's with them, listening to them, and asking questions. Now it does say this in verse 47, everyone who heard him was amazed at his understanding and his answers. But this concept that Jesus was out in front of them all just kind of as a 12-year-old telling them what to do is incorrect. That Jesus was in fact learning and listening and growing. And then of course Mary and Joseph, they find him, they say, son, why have you treated us like this? Your father and I have been anxiously searching for you. I doubt it was said in that tone. It was probably a little more like, what in the world are you doing? And Jesus says, of course he's 12. Remember, it's a 12-year-old talking. He says, well, why were you searching for me? Didn't you know I had to be in my Father's house? But they did not understand what he was saying to them. Then, it says, he went down to Nazareth with them and was obedient to them. But his mother treasured all these things in her heart, and Jesus grew in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and men. I like the fact that Luke goes out of his way to say in verse 51, then he went down to Nazareth with them, so Jesus went with him, and was obedient to them. It's like just kind of a wake-up call, like, man, I need to mind mom and dad. But the other verse I think that sticks out, verse 52, and Jesus grew in wisdom and stature with God and men. So, you know, Jesus, obviously, smartest guy ever. If he was God incarnate, he had the wisdom of God with him. And yet still, he listened, and he learned, and he grew. So maybe this would be a lesson to all of us, especially those of us that consider ourselves leaders, that we can't spend all our time giving direction, that we need to sit and listen. And whether that's listening to God, seeking him, or if it's listening to the wisdom of others, that needs to be happening in our lives. So take some time today to listen and to grow. A couple of really quick announcements I want you to know. Dan and Darla are getting married Friday night at Connections at 8 o'clock. The whole church is welcome to come. Dan and Darla were with us at our very first Bible study when there was 12 of us meeting at my house. And so they've invited the whole church, so you're welcome to be there at 8 o'clock at Connections. Also, This week, Dimitri is preaching. I'm always stoked to hear him share. He's talking about New Year's resolutions, and I'll be leading some worship. It's going to be a great weekend. And then on the 9th of January, please be there. Put that on your calendar. I'm going to lay out the future of Connections. This is where we're going to head for the next 12 months. I have a definite word for us for the next 12 months. What is important? What we're going to make happen. I'm getting excited just talking about it. But this is where God is leading us for the next 12 months. So that's on the 9th. So a lot of great stuff happening these next few weeks. I hope to see you at all of them. Happy New Year.